Hello, hello. Welcome back to another week of Foreign Takes. Who's here with me, boys?
KG's here after the disappointing Man United Man City derby. And yeah, looking forward to discussing the results this week.
Who else is back from being gone for a week?
It's Big Lev back here. They're coming back to same old trash United and Marcus Rashford just, being disappointing and not helping out at all.
How was Tommy T? How did you spank him?
No, Tommy T was away this week, so
Yeah, he was away at Freiburg.
yeah,
We should probably just
he didn't
jump
do very well.
No, he did not do. You would have done better, honestly speaking, than Tommy T did. Let's just jump right into it, probably with the game that's freshest, which was Manchester City 3, United 1. For anyone who didn't watch, all non-City fans had hope for the first half, and then we were destroyed emotionally by the disappointment of United. Mr. KG, overall thoughts on the game?
As expected. That's pretty much the sum up of the game. You asked me before the game would start, what did I think the score is going to be? I told you 3-1 City. It's exactly how it came in. Nothing out of the ordinary.
So I think we all agree that the first half was a pretty good half, and United's plan was obviously working to the T. There was a couple chances, but the second half collapse, it was the disappointing part, really, right? It's like the United, like the subs were bad, their mentality was bad. It's like something happened in the second half where they just did not come out to play.
So there's two things with that result. So number one, the plan was working because they were creating chances, but in the second half they didn't follow the plan. Essentially, you could say they were just defending, and there was no clear pattern of play in the second half. It was just defending, waiting until the goal to come in. And yes, it doesn't help that the bench is not as strong. People will say, "Oh, we don't have enough subs." It doesn't help when you have Amari Forrest and Amrabat coming in who gives away the ball on the last minute to Erling Haaland. But there still wasn't enough in the team to muster any chances. They didn't go for it in the second half. And second is that I think it's time for Ten Hag to go. Honestly, I think in the summer he should be gone. Should bring someone else. He can rebuild the squad altogether. And I'm saying this because Ten Hag should go because there is no plan. There's no pattern of play. This style of play against City is show me the difference between what Mourinho did, what Ole did, and what Ten Hag did. And we had this conversation before that Arteta and Klopp are going to play the same way, and they should. That's what I said. They should change their style of play to win the game. Yeah, they should do that when you're fighting for a title. When you're not fighting for a title, when you're building a style of play, you need to have your own patterns of play. And going forward, I don't see anything. Yeah, Hojlund is injured, but without Hojlund, that's the best top three that you can have this season. The up front four that you can have this season without Hojlund, and they could muster a second chance in this game. Yeah, Rashford had two chances that he didn't score in the first half, but in the second half they were non-existent. So there's no style of play. It's the same thing as what Mourinho did, what Ole did. Sit back, counterattack, and they can't even do that well because Ole won against City 2 years back, and Mourinho won against City 3 years back, and then Ten Hag can't do that. And his statistics against the top six sides are abysmal. They have one win against Aston Villa, one draw against Liverpool, and that's it. And everyone else they lost. It's time for him to go. I don't think he has it. And God forbid if they had more people off the bench, maybe they would have snatched a draw, but it wouldn't be an effective way to get a draw.
I guess just going back to the game for a second, the equalizer for Manchester City. So for anyone who hasn't seen it, it's United have a counter, fantastic ball out. Rashford is basically in on goal, and Kyle Walker initially when it looks live they seem to like touch each other a little bit. Rashford goes down, and then of course as soon as City go back up, Phil Foden scores. So I think for anyone on replay, it's really obvious. You can see that Kyle Walker clipped Rashford's knees, and at that speed that you're going, you're obviously going to fall. But it doesn't look like a foul it live, but on replay it does. But I think my assumption is that VAR did not review the incident, right? So like, would
No, they
that
didn't.
have changed anything? Like, is that another turning point in the game? That's like typical,
No,
or is it just like it wouldn't have mattered? Realistically,
it wouldn't
City
have
would have won
mattered.
anyway.
No, I think it was just a matter of time. Like, here's the thing: it's frustrating, it's annoying, but not only I don't think that even the first half went to the T to the dot. It wasn't perfect. At the last 10 minutes of first half, you could see literally like I told you guys we need to like United need to break desperately because it was just non-stop attack, attack, attack. At that point, unless Kyle Walker received the red, for which he wouldn't receive red in that situation because there are people covering, it wouldn't matter because it will only be a matter of time until City scored. It was just relentless attack. And why I agree with KG here that Ten Hag has to go is just he had not demonstrated at any game, including this one, that he can change stuff on the fly. Something that like Klopp is really good at, and other great managers are really good at. He was just sitting there and taking it and
Yeah,
seeing if he
and
could play out the rest of the game.
the plan was, I get what the plan was. I told you this is the only way you can beat City, and it makes sense when you're United, you're going in to beat it that like sitting back and pinging counterattacks. My point is why he needs to go is that the United under different managers they've done it in a better way than they've done it today. Like it wasn't we didn't do this well. We don't play possession pressing forward as a unit together well. We don't counterattack well. What do we do well? And people are gonna say, oh, we didn't have Lisandro Martinez. We didn't have this. But if you look overall, yes, there is no left back. That's a major problem here. There's no Hojlund. That's a major problem. I think. Other than that, to play on a counter-attacking football, you need to have a solid defenders base. I mean, we also didn't have Maguire. We also didn't have Lisandro Martinez, but you had Lindelof, you had Varane, which played together for 2 or 3 years, two years together already. They would be able to do something to defend, especially with three midfielders that you put out to do that exactly. So you just need to ping the ball correctly to the wings, and then Garnacho and Rashford ran away with it. That didn't happen. They couldn't do it. You can't blame the injuries all the time. They should be able to produce at least a fight. After the second goal went in, there was nothing. He didn't even
Yes.
make any changes. He didn't even put Ahmad on for. He put Anthony on for somebody. Like the subs are even questionable. The subs are questionable from.
Yeah, Anthony was abysmal, and like we've seen all that all year. And like he came in, immediately stopped two counterattacks. So there's weird holding onto the ball,
Yeah,
and yeah, well, bro. You can say they lack people, but every team lacks people. It's just he's not good at even managing what he has, and so what's annoying here? The United were so dangerous on the fast breaks back. Like the first goal they scored, and there were some others where just pinging the ball out to the flanks really created problems for City, and they just refused to do that. Lots of times, someone would receive the ball and would hold on to it and pass it back to the middle, where they would just get eaten alive. And I just didn't understand why they kept doing that, and why Ten Hag wasn't just like stop doing that shit.
It's just like
yeah,
the control was lost. I think this is, to be honest, I feel like since the new year, the United fans, even the ones who have strongly backed Ten Hag, it feels like the tide is finally starting to turn. And the most common complaint I think we've all heard and seen over the last a year and a half, 2 years, is that we just don't know what he wants to do. It's just that there's
yeah.
never a pattern of play. Is it a pressing team? Is it a counter pressing team? Is it a possession? There's nothing there. Speaking of, just moving on quickly to the other contender, which was Liverpool yesterday, were away at Forest and needed a 99th minute winner of the 97 minutes that were supposed to be played by who again, Mr. Big Lev?
Bro, Darweezy 2024.
There it
Darweezy,
is.
make Merseyside great again.
I think this is, in all honesty, Forrest shot themselves in the foot. That goal should never have stood. Right? They had two opportunities to clear it. It was literally the 99th minute. They tried to play out of the back. Of course, perfect cross, amazing finish, but Liverpool just pulling it out. Big Lev, it's another
Yeah,
game that you guys just keep pulling out another win.
dude, that's a classic championship winning game. In terms of like, you need to have those points if you're gonna end up with a title at the end of the year. And yeah, because the Forest goalkeeper had hell of a match. He had some really great saves, so it really been like a frustrating evening. But Darweezy comes through, drains the swamp.
Yeah, your boy Matt Turner, the American bald eagle, saved
Oh no,
a
no,
bunch of shit.
they dropped him. They dropped him to the
No, there was a
bench.
different goalkeeper. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
Who was
Matt
it?
Turner is
Mr.
gone. Yeah, he
Hmm,
played much better than Matt Turner.
is that in Harry Potter? What's it called? Spell name Vladi Chimohomos,
Yes,
whatever.
I
The
think that
green
is who
guy.
it is. Yes,
Okay, I
he,
think
he
yeah.
he had a fantastic game. In all honesty, even the goal that Darwin scored, some people were blaming him, but there's nothing he can do. But can we just talk about Darwin for a second, Big Love? Because I think he's gone. People always criticize his finishing, but when you look at the number of goals and assists he's contributed, this is an incredible return, right? It's like, sure, it's
Yeah,
not like there's nothing more you can really ask of him. Like, of course, if he was clinical, but he is still finishing them and he's still providing assists. Like, he's having a fantastic season.
Amazing,
yeah.
yeah.
He has double-digit goals and assists in all competitions. 10 goals in Premier League, 7 assists. So, and he's not the guy. He's not the go-to, and he also had missed some point on injury. So, uh, I think the annoying part is if he could just finish even like half of his chances, he'd be like a 30-goal striker. He'd be like Haaland. I think at this point he definitely secured himself the future at Liverpool, and I'm excited. Let's see. Right now, obviously, he's doing well. Let's see with the manager change what's going to happen. But he's been immense this season in terms of like the last few months. He also scored some very important goals, not just goals for goal's sake, but like goals that bring you points.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think the thing I like about him and both him and Hoyland is when they were both not receiving when of course like different circumstances, but when Hoyland wasn't receiving service and then when Nunez was missing chances, their heads didn't drop. They were still making the runs. They were still pushing, and I feel like that's the sign between some of the top strikers and the next tier of strikers is they just kept going. They just
Yeah,
keep going, and that's
yeah.
why I think they will both be successful respectively for Liverpool and
That's
Manchester
the
United.
difference between Rashford and any of those two mentioned, because Rashford is just he'll do an incorrect thing, put his hands up, and then he missed so many chances today. He's not. He scored an amazing goal. Everyone's gonna forgive him probably because his local boy scored a Manchester derby. Blah 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 blah. He had an abysmal game, right? And
Yeah, I agree.
he's not a
Mm-hmm.
world class level striker, as you mentioned rightfully so, in comparison to Darwin Nunes and Hoyun.
Yeah,
He
they
he's
just keep
ne-
going.
he can't keep going. He
Yeah,
scores a goal and then he loses all the confidence, and then he could have won that game single handedly if he was a world class striker.
yeah,
That's for
that's
sure.
true. Like, had those balls been to Nunez or Hoyland, I feel like they would have actually been able to do something.
Yeah,
And then so obviously the title race, Arsenal's not playing till Monday, so we'll see. But we expect them to win against Sheffield. But for the top four, speaking of Manchester United, so
just
of
a quick
course,
question before we move to the top four topic. Next weekend it's Liverpool versus City, and I don't know. I wanted to ask Big Love, like, do you know who's going to be back from injuries? If anyone is back, do you expect Salah to be fit, Sabozlai to be fit? How do you feel going into next Sunday? I believe there's going to be Europa League on Thursday as well, right?
Yeah. So Boslai was back this last game,
Okay.
so he's gonna be back on Nunes. Um, I think probably Salah will be back because he was close to being ready, but he might come off the bench in Europa League. I don't know. Yeah, but they should at least have him on a subs bench because we definitely need him. The big thing is Allison is not back, and the fact that the Kelleher has been just amazing, which just came out of nowhere. So I'm honestly like I'm a little cautious because City are in good. They're in a really great form, and but we have to win the game. That's the kind of game like that's gonna push us over the over the finish line.
it's a
Yeah.
must win, right? We all agree
Yeah.
Must
for
win.
for either team, it's a must win game.
Well, for us, it's
Yeah.
not a must win. I think for City, it's more of a must win. We can take a draw and still be in the first place. Well, I
Yeah,
guess Arsenal would be, but we'll be in a good position still.
yeah.
Yeah, look at YT smiling. But the problem was, and it was clearly evident today, that not the problem, but the difference is that City did not. They relatively came out unscathed with injuries this
Yes.
season.
Yeah.
They only had KDB out for a long period of time, and now he's back. That's pretty much the biggest. And Haaland for 2 or 3 weeks there. That's it. But if you look at it today, for example, Doku didn't play well. they put on Alvarez. Alvarez created the first goal. Like he pretty much assisted on. So they have the bench where they can easily feel more stronger in it. So that's the only edge that I believe they would have because Liverpool's a little bit down. But we'll see. It's going to be an interesting couple of weeks because it's City versus Liverpool, City versus Arsenal. And they can really run away with it right now.
Yeah, they absolutely
Yeah.
could. Just going back, so I think speaking of the rest of the competition, so Villa had another last minute win away to home to Luton, who they won 2-3, and then Spurs beats Crystal Palace at home 3-1. So the top four race is really beginning to tighten. I think it's Villa at 55 points, then Spurs at 50 points with a game in hand, and then with a little bit of a gap is United at 44 points. So that is an 11-point gap. Is it essentially over as far as fourth place is concerned for United at this
It's over.
stage?
It's over. United should sack Ten Hag as soon as it's mathematically, which is like 4 games before. They should just sack Ten Hag. And I know there's gonna be people, oh, like he has shit players, he has this, he has that. Again, they'll continue on it. He's not making top four after a transfer window period of bringing in the players that you wanted to see, and all of them are shit. Barring Lisandro Martinez, all of them are shit.
Yes.
And Hojlund,
It has to be
sorry,
over, right?
Hojlund.
It has to just new ownership structure, new director of football, new technical director, also new manager, and you get a fresh start.
They gave him time to turn it around. They understood that he has injuries. It just doesn't seem to work. And I completely agree. He didn't imprint anything that you would say this is Ten Hag's style of play. This is Ten Hag's United, as we talked about literally 10 minutes ago. But yeah, I think once he's officially out of the Champions League, it's going to be a good time to move him on. I don't think it's his fault. It's not his shortcomings as a manager. I think the job just eats you out alive if
Yeah.
you're not ready for it. And he wasn't ready for it. And there's a lot of things that can go wrong, and a lot of things did go wrong. Thank you for Lisandro Martinez and Rasmus Højlund. If he stays on, of course, I'm not going to be turning bitter on him and saying that he needs to go. But I think it will be best for him and for the club if they part ways in the summer.
Yeah, I agree. The other manager who is having quite the opposite time is, of course, Sean Dyche at Everton, who, as they appealed their 10-point deduction, it was reduced by 4 points. So they now have a 6-point deduction, which means suddenly they're 5 points above the relegation spot. So Everton at 25 points, Forrest at 24, Luton at 20. Are we surprised that they were able to get 4 points back on appeal?
They're just perping you.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, why 4 and not 5? Why either? The whole thing was just very strange, and I feel
Right.
like Premier League have backed themselves into a corner because now everyone will be like, okay, so City will get away with their 155, but you're gonna punish smaller teams. But then if you complain enough, you're gonna punish them less, or like if they had the money of City, would they be able to claw back all 10 points? It's just very weird for me.
It's just they're
Right.
preparing you. They're preparing you. They're gonna do the same
Yeah.
thing with City. They're gonna like say you need to be what's it called, demoted the championship and stripped off your titles, and then they're gonna be like, oh, we're changing our tune. You're gonna be stripped out of your one title. But you're gonna stay and start with 10 points.
Yeah.
Like,
They're
it's
not
gonna be
going to
something.
strip them of any titles. I think the best case we can hope for is some point deductions and maybe a transfer ban.
Or maybe Champions League, they lose a spot for the upcoming year or something of that nature. But I think
that's up to UEFA because this is a PL investigation. And
that's a good point. Yeah. I think the only thing is both Everton and so Everton's point deduction was from the year before, and then for last year they're still being investigated, and apparently they're going to be Everton and Forrest are expecting points deduction because of FFP for last year, not the year before. So it's
Starting
still
next
possible.
season.
No, sometime in the next, I think apparently it's going to be in the next week or sorry, in the next month or so, we're going to hear what their point deduction is going to be for both Everton and Forrest. So the bottom race is really not closed, right? It's like, yeah, they have 4 or 5 points on the bottom 3, but they're still expected to have more points deduction this year, which makes no sense.
But in reality, if they didn't have the point deduction, the bottom race would have been kind of like what? I mean, Luton has a game in hand. Luton are doing quite well. Burnley
Yeah.
and Sheffield United are out of it. Again, I've been saying this whole season. If Burnley really wanted to save their asses, they should have fired Company a long time ago. They really don't want to do it. Sheffield United tried, but obviously their squad is below par. Luton are doing God's work. by
Yeah.
trying to stay afloat, but they're being stupid. They are being stupid because they can score goals, but they concede bucket loads of goals. They conceded 9 in the last 2 games, and after a 6-2 thrashing of City, they didn't reorganize, and they didn't even shore up the lines when it was 2-2 against Aston Villa. They
Yeah,
just
they were going for the
conceded a
win.
goal. They were going
Yeah,
for the
they
win. Why? Why go for a win? You can get you're fighting for relegation, not for the title. Like you can take a win again. You can take a draw against Aston Villa after a 6-2 thrashing, and it's gonna be okay. This is, I think, the approach of a very unexperienced manager in terms of trying to stay afloat. He takes the good approach of trying to play this hard rock football or whatever, rock solid football, whatever club does, of like going forward, bashing them out, still like attacking, but then he doesn't do the smart way of realizing that you're like you're not
yeah, he has
Liverpool.
to realize
Like,
very soon. Otherwise,
yeah,
because he only has 11 more games.
yeah, there's
But
11 more games, but if there's going to be a deduction from Nottingham Forest, it's to their hand. But if there's not going to be any deduction, it's like Luton will be feeling hard done by the whole thing.
agreed. Yeah. What were you about to say, Big Love?
Well, I was gonna say, if you compare, so Burnley has the worst difference in terms of like where they rank for net spending versus their actual rank. So in terms of net spending, they're like spend way more than Luton, than Sheffield, than Everton and others, but they're dead last. And you can't really say, oh, they didn't invest in the squad. It's really comes down to, hey, you will refuse to change the ways, and the manager's definitely not working.
I think
Go
we all, I think at this stage know that he's not going to get fired, right? Like to them, they're taking a longer term approach. They're
Yeah.
not trying to survive this year. They're like, it's fine. We're going to
You know
bet
what he's
these
going to get
players in.
fired? He's going to get fired 10 games into the championship next season because they're not going to be able to be up top, and they'll need to change it because the players are going to turn on him because they're going to go down. Some of them are going to leave, some of them are going to stay. There's going to be a problem with contracts and how much money they're going to pay. He's not going to be able to implement that same style of football. It's going to be more of a case of Southampton rather than it's going to be a case of Leicester.
We were about to like, yeah. I think
Yeah.
that's where it'll be interesting, right? Not now, but in September or maybe even October of next year, we're going to see.
Yeah.
Probably a good time to just switch over to the Bundesliga. So our boy Tommy T and Big Lev last week on a
Last
Friday.
Friday.
Last Friday they had a chance to catch up on Leverkusen a little bit, and instead they drew 2-2 away to Freiburg. Freiburg, who recently switched their manager and are struggling themselves. They're now, I think, there's an 11-point gap, as far if I remember correctly,
10 points. 10
10
points.
points, and it's basically over at this stage, right? As far
Yeah.
as Leverkusen and Bayern are concerned,
Liga is done and dusted, man.
done
Boy,
and
my
dusted.
take that it's gonna be a 2 or 3 point win didn't age well over the
No,
weekend.
especially because I think Cologne got a red card, I believe, in the 15th or 16th minute against Leverkusen. Leverkusen had complete control of the game. It just, they deserve it though, right? Because they are unbeaten season so far, which is a crazy thing to say.
Yeah, no, they're gonna win it. My point was that they're gonna win with a 2 3 point cushion, not a
No.
10 point cushion. But clearly, Thomas Tuchel went like, let's throw away the league, or the players went, let's throw away the league. Freiburg, who had the most awful run of games this season, the past 5 games, turned out and like scored first, and then didn't want to lose. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Clearly, Leverkusen's winning it. Good for the Bundesliga. Much more like it should have been more entertainment for people to be
Yes.
tuned in more. But I think now is going to be a run at the cups. They're playing midweek against Lazio, and I know YT mentioned that they should be able to go over Lazio. Do you think after this run of 8 games where they lost 3 on a bounce, won one, drew one, or and then won a couple before, like so whatever amount of games it was, 3 losses, 1 draw, 1 win. What do you think? How is
I,
this form?
I think this is a good question because I think Bayern are going to be able to score, but I don't know if they're going to be able to keep a clean sheet, and that's why I think it'll come down to because Lazio at the end of the day only have a 1 goal advantage, so. But I just don't know if Bayern, in their eagerness to push forward too much, will expose themselves and get hit on the counter by Lazio. So there's a sneaky feeling, and especially because Lazio had 3 red cards this past weekend, so all those players are not going to be playing in the Serie A next week. So they're all going to be ready to play full speed, 100% gung ho in the midweek. So I do think that it's going to be a tie, and that Bayern is going to go crashing out. And at that stage, it's a complete failure as far as Tommy T is concerned.
Yeah, do you think they're gonna get rid of him at this point now?
No.
Do you think
I
they're
think
gonna
it
let him
doesn't
until
matter.
then?
I think there's no point. Who are you going to bring in? Yep. No, there's no point. I think at this stage, just accept that he's going to be leaving. I think he's going to leave similar to last year, the moment the whistle was blown in the last game. I think he's going to be leaving as soon as the whistle is blown of the last game.
Well, they might announce who's gonna take over from him before the last game, but because they already announced he's leaving.
Yes.
It's just
Yeah.
at this
It's
point.
done.
Yeah, what you're gonna do? Like fire him and have his assistant take over, who's gonna also be gone. This is like whatever. Like you just like
No,
whatever
but when you do
I-
that, when you put an assistant, it's like you officially thrown in the towel.
Well,
This is
I
like you
think
didn't officially throw in the towel.
I think Bayern already officially threw in the towel in terms of like you're not gonna announce that your coach is leaving unless you're kind of resigned that you're not gonna win anything substantial this year. Because at this point, whatever you get from this season is a gift.
Yes, and we know they're not beating anybody in the champions. Like they're not beating the big boys in the Champions League, right? They're not
Yeah.
beating City.
Yeah.
They're not beating Madrid. So whether they beat Lazio or not really doesn't matter. I think they're just going to ride it essentially for the rest of this
I
year.
think they're really hoping that like okay, let's forget. Like I think Tommy T's like I have cups left for me and I have one cup. Let's put all my energy in it. I really think that's what he's doing. I would not be surprised if they come out and win Lazio confidently. That's what he put all his money on. But
We'll see.
my
The thought of Eric Dyer versus Haaland or Eric Dyer versus Vinny just makes no sense. I
But
think
just to wrap up on Bayern, somewhere in Munich, a poor guy sits there with his fish and chips, eating and thinking, "I could have
No
been a
one sits
Premier
in
League
Munich
title."
with fish and chips, bro.
There is one guy. There is one guy. His name is Harry Kane. He's
poor Harry.
he's like, why am I here? I thought this was a title guarantee. What am I doing? I left my Spurs. I left my Roosters on the ball for what? For what?
Yeah.
We're going to be in the Champions League next year with Sonny.
Yeah,
He's
that's
probably
crazy though, and it's also like Harry has pulled so many points from them from like out of nothing. Like
yeah.
he's performed. I mean, it's crazy. I think just quickly
I
on
mean,
La
it's
Liga.
basically his Tottenham form, right?
Yes, it's
he
basically
does the
like
same.
nothing's changed. I do
nothing's
feel bad
changed.
for him. The other game in La Liga that was quite interesting this weekend was Valencia versus Real Madrid. The final was 2-2. Of course, it was Vinicius who got both goals for Madrid, making the Valencia fans go insane. I think that the point to talk about was the ending of this game. So for anyone who hasn't watched, you absolutely have to see just the last 20 seconds of the game. Essentially what happens is they're in extra time, and it was the 98th minute, but there had been an injury in extra time, so they were supposed to play a little longer. A corner comes in, it gets cleared by Valencia. It goes to Brahim Diaz on the edge of the box. So at this stage, the ref has not blown the whistle. He's let the play keep going. Right as Brahim Diaz is about to cross, the whistle gets blown. And of course, Jude Bellingham, who else, scores the header, but it's disallowed. The Real Madrid go crazy. Bellingham gets a red card. Apparently, Rudiger also got a red card. KG, you and I were talking. This was blatant. I don't want to say corruption. It's just completely inept from the referee.
It's up there with Liverpool's goal being disallowed. It's like second spot of this year's worst decision because the ball was midair. He was like, "Oh, the ball's midair. Okay, end of the game." Like nobody does it. You let the play go till the end, and you decided to do that. Don't blow it midair. Blowing it midair is like literally going, "Okay, fuck, they're gonna score." No, 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 no. That's essentially what the thought of it was. You can't just
yeah, it makes no sense. If they're attacking, just give that 10 seconds.
Yes. Or when the goalie clears it, blow it out immediately then, right?
Yeah.
Not when Brahim Diaz has possession of it all over again. It's one of those things like you see this decision and you're like, are there decisions this bad in the Premier League? And I'm like, are they worse or are they better? And then, each week they prove to be worse. It's just like, no, this week I'm worse. No, this week I'm worse. It's embarrassing.
It seems like La Liga just wanted to have some interest in the league with hoping that Girona is going to win and slash their distance to what would it be? It would be 5 points, but Girona lost today, so
yeah.
not even like 5 points. That probably would be 4 points. But Girona lost today, so that didn't work out.
Girona's off the boil. I mean, it was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Two other things just before we wrap up for the day, because we'll do Champions League predictions at the very end, was Pogba has
Breaking news before we move into Pogba. Speaking of Pogba's club, Napoli and Juventus are playing as we're recording, and no one other than Khvicha Kvaratskhelia has scored his goal, and Napoli are leading 1-0 in halftime.
quite
Let's
nice.
go. Bro, he scored 2 last time out, so he
Yes.
seems to be getting back in the groove. And
Yeah.
Osimo is back, so I think that helps him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see what they're going to do against Barcelona in the Champions League. But
Yeah, we'll get to that. Pogba his ban was essentially upheld. Of course, he still has one more appeal to the CAS. But I think just to quickly touch on, so he's 31. He'll be 34 or 35 by the time he's allowed to come back. So we can just assume his career is essentially over. I think he was cups wise, I think, or like titles wise, he has of course the World Cup of 2018, and then 4 Serie A titles. How do we think he's going to be remembered? Is he going to be remembered as a successful player or someone who didn't fulfill his potential?
No, he's going to be remembered as a cautionary tale to everyone else because it's the biggest waste of huge waste of potential. Yeah, he won the World Cup, but that was like a super stacked French team. So no one's gonna be Pogba won the World Cup. No, France Mbappe won that World Cup. Yeah, Pogba was a big part, but he wasn't even top 3 player in there. So
crazy, right?
Yeah, it's just a cautionary tale that this guy was the most expensive player in the world at some point, and he was supposed to be the next best midfielder for 10 years, and remind me other than isolated incidents and episodes of him doing great things, he hasn't even had one great season since he left Juventus the first time.
Yeah.
He's not going to be remembered at all.
Right? He's just going to disappear.
He's going to be, and nobody's ever there's going to be people who are going to be somewhat nostalgically remembering him for his period at Juventus, and then some crazy United fans on Twitter who are going to be like, Pogba was Pogba deck writers essentially, who probably still exist, who are more like anti-United fans rather than they are United fans. But yeah, he's not going to be remembered. Here's the question that I had for you. I agree with everything Bigelow said, and I think YT, you have the same feeling on Pogba. But here's a question that I have for you, for all of you. Is there was this period of there was Ronaldo and Messi who were the best ones in the world, and then there was. And now it's Mbappe and Haaland's era. It's beginning. It's kicking off there. That's why there's conversations of Haaland going to Barcelona. That Haaland versus Mbappe reignite this whole Messi versus Ronaldo thing. So there's pretty much their new era. They're the new poster boys of football. Not Ronaldo and Messi anymore. So much so. So there was a small slit of period in time when there was these large, big, talented players that were coming out, and they were expected to challenge Messi and Ronaldo. The players such as Neymar, Bale, Pogba, Hazard, all of them were named that, they're going to take over this era. They're going to take over Messi and Ronaldo. But all of those 4 players failed. We can agree, right? So do you think it was because they weren't up to it? Do you think they didn't have the drive? Do you think Messi and Ronaldo, their performance level just ate them up? What happened to those talented crop of players in between the end of the era? Because it was at the peak of Messi and Ronaldo. They were at the point where they should have went down and they should have come in, but that didn't happen. They just went on going, and Messi and Bale, Ronaldo, Hazard, Neymar, they just Pogba, they all remain as flops in the history of football.
I think there's one thing we can all relatively agree on, which is Messi and Ronaldo weren't just the most talented players; they were among the most hardworking players. Like their ethic to win, their professionalism was unlike anybody. Because all the players you mentioned, Hazard readily admits he was constantly overweight, did not like to train. Neymar liked to party in Brazil, had no interest in being a professional. Pogba, same thing. So you go every list, I think it's actually a tale for the future stars, because the truth is Mbappe is not going towards the Messi or Ronaldo route. His skills and his talent is their level, but all the other stuff that comes with it is on the tier of the Hazards and the Pogbas. So I think it's I think there's no one answer. I think it's a combination of Messi and Ronaldo showed what you can do with talent meets hard work, and the others showed where talent doesn't meet hard work. I think it's a perfect combination, and that's why I personally believe, we're talking about Haaland versus Mbappe. Mbappe is incredible. I think we all agree. but the drama that surrounds him, I
Mm.
feel like will stop him from getting to that level. I think this last weekend was a perfect example. He got subbed at halftime. Instead of going to the bench, what did he end up doing? He on his phone, talking to the fans, went to the stand with his mom. It's such an unprofessional path forward. That's why I think like that's really the difference between those two and everybody else in the last 10, 15
Yeah.
years.
And to be
Yeah.
honest, like that professionalism translates into taking care of your body as well. Because I don't remember an extended period of time where either Messi or Ronaldo were injured. And part of it, yes, it's luck, but the other part is just how well they're taking care of themselves and putting that as the most important thing, the preparation and the physical, fitness. While Hazard was too busy eating Big Macs or whatever he was obsessed with something for a while.
Yeah, he's just
Yeah.
obsessed. So that's why I
But
think that's why we will never witness another Messi and Ronaldo.
but do you think it's sorry to cut you off, but do you think it's because the football changed in its nature because there became a lot of money? There's a lot of ways you become an entity in a
No,
of yourself, or is it because there's just it will be always like that, always
no,
like
I
that?
think it'll always be like that. There will always be football stars. There will always be money. The money will always keep growing, and in the same way that the money didn't really impact Messi and Ronaldo in terms of on the field, but it has affected the others, if that makes sense. So that's why I think that's what makes them unique. It's not just the what they did on the football, because it's tied to what they did on off the pitch, but also on the pitch. So that's why I really don't think it's like that's what makes them amazing. It helped that the two of them also helped each other get elevated, if that makes sense. Because that
Yeah,
period where they were both in La Liga, they were both scoring those ridiculous numbers, 70, 80 goals in a calendar year. I think that helped them elevate. And had either one of them not being professional, they would have been overtaken by the competitor in that era. So it helped them both push each other by staying professional, pushing each other. So that's why I think like where I doubt we'll see like that's why people always talk about Haaland or Mbappe. I personally think it seems more likely that Haaland will maintain it, like his trajectory over time. Even though I think Mbappe has more natural talent, just because Haaland seems to just care more about the football, and Mbappe there's more stuff around him. Like there's just too
yeah,
much noise around him.
yeah. I agree. I agree. I think so as well. I think football also in copes with that. I also think that football also changed a lot. I think football when we started watching it and right now is completely different from a fan's perspective. I don't think that
Yes.
I don't think you can be a, a player of one team anymore. I don't think people are going to be fans of one team. I think there's going to be much more what we would call glory hunters back in the day. There's going to be much more. This is where football is going. It's going to be more of a casual fan who supports this player, and when he moves, he's going to support that team wherever he plays. It's going to be more of an individualistic approach to football rather than a team sport and people bleed for the team, except for those people who obviously go to the games all the time. That say propaganda, say culture of being tied to Arsenal, tied to Man United is going away because of these new players who are attracting fans because of their personality rather than their footballing abilities.
Yeah.
And that started off in my mind with Neymar and Bale and Hazard. All people fell in love with them and they would be their fans forever. They would forget about Chelsea. They would go like probably Chelsea fans would be like that who started watching them because of Hazard. They would be like, I loved Chelsea when Hazard was there. Since he's not there anymore, I was personally a fan of his. Now this Chelsea, look at what Chelsea did in 1 year. Again, with completely different, diverting away a bit. But if you're really a Chelsea fan, how can you support the team that was 2 years ago completely different starting 11? There's two players left, Gallagher and Thiago Silva, probably Kepa if he comes back. That's it, and then the whole
Nobody
23
else.
man's going to change. So
Yeah.
that's where we're going, and that's a bit sad, but it is what it
Yeah.
is.
It is what it is. Just the way it has to evolve.
Yeah,
I think just to quickly wrap up for the day, I want to do some very quick Champions League predictions for the upcoming games. So, Man City's playing at home against Copenhagen. They have a 3-1 lead. What do we think?
they're going to
Do
go
we have? Do
through.
we even have to ask?
Yeah.
That's why I
Look,
started with that.
bro. Next. Come on.
Okay,
Mhm.
fine. I think more interestingly will be Real Sociedad at home to PSG. PSG have a 2-goal lead.
PSG is going through.
They'll close it.
Right?
That's at
I think
home.
there's just too much going. Yeah, away from home with counter attacking with Mbappe, there's just too much pace.
I do I think Sociedad's going to score one and make the tie spicy, but PSG is going to go through.
Yeah. The most interesting one, I think, is Bayern at home to Lazio. They're down a goal. How do we feel?
I think they're going to squeak through. Still, I'm still sold on
Oh,
that.
interesting.
I would
Big
agree
Lev?
that Bayern will squeak through, but it's gonna be Lazio might score one goal. So
Oh,
it's gonna
interesting.
be a little nervous for Bayern fans for a bit there.
And
Yeah,
there's no
interesting.
away goal, so
Yeah,
they
Yeah.
can win 2-1. Like that's where the beauty of the game goes away a bit. If there was an away goal, Lazio could lose 2-1 and they could still go through.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's just
I hate that they did away with the away
Yeah, it
goals.
makes it far less interesting. But I agree. I think it's gonna be Lazio who will pass. It'll be a draw, like 1-1 or a 2-2.
I am fairly certain they took away the away goal because football is growing in the U.S. and explaining the away goal rule to North Americans, it just blows their mind. What do you mean? What? Explain how? Why? And they're just like, let's just make it easier. Yeah.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised considering they don't know the offside rule either. And then I think the last game is Real Madrid at home to Leipzig. They have a 1-goal lead. How do we feel? Madrid gonna pull it through?
Yeah, I think Madrid's gonna pull it through.
Yeah.
Especially Pelinka's gonna come out firing after that display. He's probably going to score a bunch because he's missing the next game, as well as Rudiger.
Yeah, that's why I think as well.
Yeah.
I think that's a good place to stop. And we'll see you next week on reflecting on the next game week.
The next game week is gonna have Man City. Last one. Man City Liverpool. Your call. Come on, fast.
Oh, Man City Liverpool. So I'm gonna go with a 2-2.
Ooh, spicy.
I feel that's most likely, but I will just be bold and say 3-1. Darwizi on the score sheet with the double from Salah.
Oh, interesting.
Ooh, interesting.
KG?
Interesting. We'll see. I think 2-1 City.
2-1 City.
Just because of the injuries. Just because of the injuries. Nothing else. No. It's because of the injuries. If Liverpool had a full squad, I would lean to 2-2, like YT said, or 3-2 to Liverpool. Like Liverpool would not lose this game just because they have so many injuries and they really, really push their luck on the AFL Cup and against the Forest. I think City is just gonna. Pep Guardiola's gonna do. He's gonna talk to the fourth referee about this. It's about tactics. Gonna get inspired. That's gonna put what's it called? This is substitute goalkeeper up front, and he's gonna score something like that.
It's gonna be something ridiculous.
Yeah, but we'll see. Hopefully, I'm wrong. I'm not saying that. I want Arsenal versus Liverpool title towards the end of the season.
I think we all do. I think even Big Lev would prefer an Arsenal v Liverpool title.
Look at you, closeted Liverpool fan, being like, I think.
At this point, anything but City,
anything but City. That's how I feel. Preferably Arsenal, but anything.
That's the new title of this podcast. Anything but City.
On that note, we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah, see you next week.